are two other topics that we need to mention at this point. This is a special situation in intervals, the augmented fourth and the diminished fifth. If you go to the piano, you play these notes, they sound exactly the same because G sharp and A flat are the same key on the piano. And they have kind of an awkward sound to them. And back in centuries ago, in the Middle Ages, when music was just being written down, composers and musicians didn't like this interval at all. It felt very awkward. They would avoid it, and it actually was called the devil's interval. It's called a tritone because if you go up 3 whole steps, you can get to either one of those. And in British tradition, a whole step is called a tone. So this is a tritone. That's sort of a nickname for these two intervals. It does not mean that you can use these interchangeably. Sometimes you need an augmented fourth. Sometimes you need a diminished fifth. But if the text or me or anybody else ever says tritone, that's what they mean, augmented fourth and diminished fifth. And also they insert here the idea of compound intervals, because surely you realize notes can be more than an octave apart. They can be a lot more. And we have usually names that we refer to intervals that are even bigger than an octave. Right here, F to G, that's a second apart. This F and G, still F, still G, it's more than a second though. This is called a ninth. Here's a third. This is F to A flat. F to A flat here is a tenth. F to B is an augmented fourth, but F to this B is an augmented 11th. And F to C is a perfect fifth, but F to this C up here is a perfect 12th. Now, this might seem overwhelming, but if you look at it, you'll notice a pattern. When you have a compound interval like this one, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a ninth. Just subtract 7 and you get this simple version. Simple is less than an octave, compound more than an octave. So if you take a major second and raise this note an octave, you get a major ninth. 2 plus 7 is 9. 3 of a third plus 7 is a tenth. A fourth plus 7 is an 11th. A fifth becomes a 12th because you can add 7. And we will certainly have some exercises where you have to use those. Also remember that the compound version has the same qualities. So if a fifth can be perfect, then a 12th can also be perfect. A second cannot be perfect, a ninth cannot be perfect. They're major or minor. Thirds are major or minor. Fourths can be perfect. Of course, in this example, they have augmented ones. There will be some intervals you need to identify or generate, and our methods we've used so far just won't quite work. For instance, E sharp to B sharp. What interval is that? Well, by now I hope you realize it's a fifth, but what kind of fifth is it? We don't know anything about a key signature for E sharp major, so what can you do? Well, the trick is to sort of to transpose it. I say, these both have sharps. If I take away both of the sharps, it becomes EB. That is a perfect fifth. If E to B is a perfect fifth, then E sharp to B sharp is a perfect fifth. So we had this problem, don't know what it is. We'll lower each note a half step by eliminating the sharps. E to B, we determine that as a perfect fifth, and then we can go back and say E sharp and B sharp are a perfect fifth. Just like this guy down here, E double flat. What the heck is the key signature for E double flat? Well, we don't know. E flat to B flat. If we eliminate the double flats, they go to E and B. They go up 2 half steps or a whole step. Same thing, we know E and B is a perfect fifth. So if E to B is a perfect fifth, then E double flat to B double flat is a perfect fifth. Now when you do this, you got to be careful. Those are pretty easy ones. This one, G sharp to B. What is that? Let's lower them both, okay? Well, we didn't lower them both. We're just going to lower the bottom one. So we know that G to B, that's a major third, but now I'm going to put 1 sharp back on it. It's a half step smaller. That's a minor third. Look at that again. G sharp to B, don't know anything about G sharp major. Let's take the sharp away. G to B, that's a major third. 4 half steps, or the third note of G major. So when we put the sharp back on it, it makes it a half step closer, and so that's a minor third.